They laughed when he failed. They whispered when he walked away. But no one was laughing when he came back stronger than ever. This isn't just a story about talent. It's a story about what happens when you refuse to give up, especially when everyone has already counted you out. Let me tell you about Daniel. He was a simple man with a quiet dream. He wasn't the loudest in the room, and he definitely didn't show off. But deep down, he had this unwavering belief that he could build something truly meaningful. While others were chasing comfort and the easy life, Daniel chased growth. He was the one staying late, learning things the hard way, and yes, failing often. People saw his effort, but not in a supportive way. You could hear the whispers in the hallways. Why is he even trying? He's just not cut out for this. He should just accept who he is. Daniel would just smile and stay silent, but every single one of those words stuck with him. At work, Daniel was never the favorite. He watched as others got promotions and moved ahead, while he seemed to stay in the same place. When he dared to share his ideas, he was often met with polite laughter. When he made mistakes, they were remembered and brought up again and again. I remember this one day. After a particularly long and draining meeting, someone said jokingly, but loud enough for everyone to hear, "Daniel dreams way too big for someone like him," and the room filled with laughter. Daniel laughed along, trying to be a good sport, but inside, something cracked. That night, his walk home was slow, each step feeling heavier than the last. He kept asking himself, over and over, am I really just wasting my time? A few weeks later, everything came crashing down. A major project he had poured his heart into failed spectacularly. It wasn't because he didn't try, it was because he put his trust in the wrong people. The blame came down on him, fast and hard. The support he thought he had vanished into thin air. People just shook their heads and said, well, we all knew this was going to happen. Soon after, Daniel lost his job. There was no heartfelt goodbye, no words of encouragement. Just a cold, deafening silence and a deep sense of shame. For days, he isolated himself at home. The curtains stayed closed, the phone stayed silent. The sound of that laughter replayed in his mind on a loop. The doubts started to creep in, louder than ever. What if they're right? What if I really am nothing? One evening, Daniel found himself standing in front of a mirror. He looked tired, older, and somehow smaller than he remembered. He whispered to his reflection, is this it? Is this the end of the line? For the first time, he seriously considered quitting altogether. No more trying. No more dreaming. Just getting by. Just surviving. But then, a simple thought hit him, and it was a revelation. No one had laughed when he first started. They only laughed when he failed. And that thought, that simple realization, changed everything. Daniel made a quiet decision that night. He wasn't going to prove them wrong with angry words or grand announcements. He was going to prove them wrong with his growth. It was going to be a silent comeback. No drama, no seeking validation. Just work. He started waking up early, studying alone while the world was still asleep. He practiced his craft daily, building his skills brick by brick. Some days were incredibly painful. Some days he was so close to stopping. But whenever that doubt crept back in, he would remember the sound of their laughter. And instead of letting it break him, he used it as fuel. It pushed him forward. Months went by, no one heard from Daniel, and no one really noticed his absence. And that was perfectly fine with him. He was in his own world, learning new skills, failing in private, and improving with every small step, while others were talking. Daniel was building, while they were laughing. He was listening and learning. Slowly but surely, his confidence started to return. It wasn't a loud, arrogant confidence. It was a quiet, unshakable confidence. The kind that comes only from knowing you faced the urge to quit and you didn't. Then one day, a small opportunity appeared. It was nothing impressive. Nothing that would turn heads. Daniel almost ignored it, thinking it was beneath his new ambitions. But something inside him, a quiet voice, said, say yes. Give it a shot. And so he did. He gave it everything he had. The long nights returned, but this time they were filled with purpose. He took careful, calculated steps. No shortcuts. And this time, it worked. The project was a success. People started to notice. Then another, slightly bigger opportunity came his way. Then another. Daniel never rushed. He stayed focused, humble, and consistent. About a year later, Daniel walked into a room where he had once felt so small, so insignificant. He saw the same people, the same faces that had laughed at him. But this time, they looked at him differently. Someone whispered, "Hey, that's Daniel." There was no laughter. There were no jokes. Just a respectful silence. Because results will always speak louder than opinions, Daniel didn't give a wide, triumphant smile. He didn't celebrate loudly or point fingers. He simply stood there, a little taller. A little stronger, not because he had beaten them, but because he had beaten the version of himself that had almost given up. He realized something incredibly powerful in that moment. People will laugh at your struggle. They might even enjoy your failure, but they will always respect your consistency and your results. So, if they're laughing at you today, let them. If they doubt you, keep going anyway, because the loudest, most effective response is not anger or revenge. It's the success you build in silence. One day, your comeback will say everything you never needed to. And when that day comes, they won't be laughing anymore. Thanks for watching. Remember to keep building, stay consistent, and let your success make the noise. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.